Now it's time to set the goals for the next cycle of inflation. This way, you're always moving forward, growing, making money, not losing it. Imagine, have more freedom and more fun. Start a gold IRA with Noble Gold now and fight inflation. And this month, for every IRA above 20K, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call 877-646-5347 now to find out more or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe. How's it going? It's John Nolan here, and welcome to another Inspired Conversation. By now, you know this guest that's with us today. We have had him on for 2 previous conversations, and he is the man that blew open the lid on the Guardians of the Looking Glass, really introduced him to a broad audience through an article that he wrote several weeks ago now. And as you know, a lot of things have unfolded since. A lot of videos have come out. A lot of messages have come out. So please welcome back with me the one and only Frank Jacob.
How you doing, John? Great to see you.
Very great to see you. Thanks for coming back on, and thank you for taking the time again. Frank, since we last spoke, the famous 4th video of the Guardians of the Looking Glass has come out. I went on, I reacted to it in my own way. But before we go into your reaction, I just want to tell viewers, if you want to watch the first 2 interviews and everything we've covered so far on the Guardians of the Looking Glass, please click up here or up here, and you'll get the whole playlist of everything that we've discussed so far. But Frank, now please let us know, what were your thoughts? What were your feelings when you saw that 4th video of the Guardians of the Looking Glass?
Well, it's a really interesting twist, kind of, and they've definitely moved into new territory with their response. First of all, they of course acknowledged that the event had been blocked or stopped. And I guess if you're skeptical, you can say, of course they're going to say that. But we've received some interesting information around the same time, just prior to that message, which was for us an independent confirmation from some really high-level remote viewers that we had been discussing and sort of in exchange with for the last few weeks, really, since we began to explore the whole phenomenon of this appearance of this mysterious group, right? And so we had definitely had an independent conversation of exactly a time of day, it was a vehicle, it was a time of day, and it was intercepted. Mm-hmm. So, and then but the people essentially, they were so they sensed so much energy around it that they just said, look, we're giving you the information, but we don't want any black limos pulling up in front of our building and getting visited by any MIBs. So just, keep our identity to yourself. And so we're going to honor that. And, that's of course I don't want to be someone that just, says something for the sake of, but I can assure you that these people, and I double checked it, I kept going back to the source and saying, look, is this real? Can we trust this? And absolutely, I got double confirmations on it. The other thing that I thought was interesting is that they were directly speaking to us this time, because this time it was a reactive video. I think you mentioned that in your own thing. It was a reactive video. It wasn't something where they were just presenting information. Now they were actually having to react. So whoever they are, and we're still, all of us are, the jury is out, we're just reporting on this situation, and we're analyzing the situation as we're going along. And I think it's almost turned into kind of a dance,
It feels
in a
like
way. We're pushing them. I don't think that anyone could have anticipated the reaction that we generated through our interviews and through the interviews that I've done since. And Dieter and I had a huge wave of hundreds of thousands as well in Germany that were tuning into the thing, and a lot of the issue was around the issue of fear, and to have fear about it or not to have fear about it. And I think that we successfully I would say, hacked it and turned it into a conversation about consciousness and timelines, which a lot of people hadn't really. I mean, timeline analogy is very timely. It seems to fit very well with what's going on right now because everyone can kind of understand that we're facing some very, very serious decisions right now that could definitely lead into different timelines. Yeah. But and you know the whole the thing about CERN came up that obviously since we that they were very angry, which was interesting to hear. Their contacts were, and if you're reading it on a double with a double-sided view, right? They could say our friends in the government were angry. Now, you know, for those who believe it's controlled opposition, it could be then turned around to see we were very angry that what you've done, right? So you can look at it both ways. They're both kind of interesting ways to look at it, right? Either the other side that they had on the inside reported back to them that the people on the deep state are really pissed, or they are the deep state, and that was their form of soft disclosure. You know how there's that rule you have to kind of tell people what you're doing
Before you do it,
openly, or
yeah.
you can't get away with it, right? So it was either one of those. We're still not clear on which one it is, and I mean I'm tending just leaving it neutral. You know, we're going to see how this thing evolves, right? It's an interesting thing that's landed in the middle of our society right now. You can't ignore it. It happened, and I think because we embraced it and we so vigorously discussed it and tuned it in and discussed what it all means on a consciousness level, we're now more in control of the situation than I think if a group of people had come in and just sensationalized the dark aspect of what they were talking about, because it's not just about darkness. Yeah.
And if I want to jump in because two things did happen that at least pointed strongly towards that April 18th event that we talked about. Number one was there was a major incident in Brooklyn, in New York City. It wasn't in Times Square. It was in Brooklyn, yes. If you analyze this incident, it's kind of weird. A lot of things kind of don't add up, and whatever that incident was, but there was something that triggered media nationwide and even internationally to report on it. So that's one thing. The second interesting thing that I saw more or less by accident is that President Trump put out a statement on April 18th. I think it must have been between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. I don't remember, but he put out a statement criticizing a politician from New York City, but the statement specifically referred to the incident that had happened a few days prior and about the crime and about the danger of New York City. And the timing was peculiar for me because we need to understand one thing, that these people when the high level and these high levels, nothing is just random. The time is picked, the wording is picked, everything has meaning, even if we don't understand the meaning. And so this is something that jumped at me. I don't know how and why it is connected, but it felt very connected that day. What you mentioned, the timelines, and I want to step away a little bit from looking into the future through technology like Looking Glass or even remote viewing. Let's just look at it from a very logical standpoint. We have now an agenda that is being played out in the world. That's the Agenda 2030 or the Great Reset. And we now have so much information that's publicly accessible where people are saying by 2030, we have to be in this chipped, controlled, AI controlled transhumanist society. They have their goals and they're putting them out there. So this timeline is clear. We don't have to be remote viewers to see it. But what about the positive timeline? And we haven't been talking about that nearly enough. So do you think that this whole series of videos and the conversations we had actually triggered that in people, that they think more consciously about the future?
They absolutely do think more consciously about the future now. And I think they've also, I mean, it's not like people haven't been thinking. I think they have been thinking about it, but they haven't found a way to express it, maybe as clearly as has kind of been shaped now, you know, with the analogy of timelines. And it's like, because we're talking about the subject of the present time, you know, what is going on right now. And what is going on right now, and it's something that I keep bringing up, and I've been talking in some of the other interviews about, is that, you know, you hear a lot about some of the psychic messages coming from people saying, Oh yeah, we've already deactivated everything, and the dark forces and the deep state, they're running. I've even heard that thousands have disappeared and off the planet already, and I'm like, it's so abstract that it's and that like this is a 3 million year cycle coming to a close. I'm like, how I can't nobody can relate to that.
Yeah, it's true.
It's and you can't even there's no way to verify any of that, and it's just the thing is, if that's the case, then the major players are still here and they're more active now than they've ever been. So whatever players they took out of the game, they were insignificant. The big heavy hitters are still full press, full court press. They're out there, and we can see that. So that's very much clearly identifiable, and they are talking about the future all the time. That's their. They are using at their disposal money, tools, media that we just don't have. This is our tool right now. What we're doing. This conversation we're having with however many people listen, if it's 100 or 100,000, this is our tool to spread our vision and anchor it into the ethers and into the resonance field of the Earth's magnetosphere, if you will. Yeah, it takes away probabilities from their timeline and moves them more into our timeline. And this isn't being spoken about enough. And you can't really just, if you don't have a vision of where you want to go, then what are you going to create? They keep saying, oh yeah, it's all done and you're going to move into the fifth dimension and everything is going to be fine. Well, who's going to make this world for us? Like, just like that, there it is. I mean, you kind of have to understand where you came from to know where you're going. And where we came from is this timeline we're on now with the Klaus Schwab people, and these people leading us toward I call it the transhumanist timeline, or timeline 1. And timeline 2 is the Earth 2, the new Earth, the new human kind of thing, the organic timeline. That for me, but everyone's got it. Some people call it 1 and some people call it 2, 1 and 1, 2. It doesn't matter, but it's clear there's that timeline that's leading us toward this artificial mechanistic surveillance society. And it's just in 2016, Klaus Schwab gave a talk at the World Economic Forum and said that in 10 years, 7 billion people are going to be chipped with digital ID. Nobody knew what the hell he was talking about because they didn't understand the technology wasn't out there yet, But we can look at some of that too. It's like, what is that technology, right?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to do that, and to reiterate that is that we have, like you say, in an abstract way, always known we create our own future. But what about this collective place? And like you say, if there is this timeline 2, or the organic positive timeline, if this was just created and we would just kind of stumble into it, well, are we then again led by someone else into something that was created for us rather than created by us? So I think these conversations are extremely important. And if the Guardians videos triggered that, then, more power to them in that way. But let us know a little bit about what the Klaus Schwab timeline is. You just mentioned it.
Well, the Klaus Schwab thing was essentially saying that we are they're all set to move us into this this new kind of reality that they see for us, and that reality in technology, and it's got to do with like nanotechnology. And I mean, here, like, for example, I'll show you this picture. This is basically talking about precision nanosystems that they are planning to deploy. And, it's all about the Trojan horse technology, which they have been developing for some time now. It's a lot of people realize just how, I think a lot of people were shocked at how fast they seemed to come up with a solution. That they suddenly had this new like virus, vaccine on the horizon within very, very little time. It's because they've been developing this technology now for quite a while, right? So another aspect of it is something called hydrogel, and there's even this like I found this. I did this presentation. I think it was almost 2 years ago. You know, and I don't even know if this will play, but it's like no, does it play? Yeah, maybe I can play it here. Yeah, you can see it. Just watch a couple of seconds of this.
What if there was a simpler way of knowing how you're doing? How you're really doing?
A way to end the monotony of this. And enjoy the freedom of this.
Take the difficulties and the hassles that you've always known and replace them with the comfort and the warmth of home.
Lumi is transformative science that pairs smart technology on the inside. A single Lumi microsensing fiber provides months of actionable medical-grade data on your body's key biochemistry. Anytime, anywhere, in a continuous data stream, making information immediate.
Belle, you're hypoxic.
Allowing the right decisions to be made at the right time.
Anyway, I won't play the whole thing, but you get the idea. You know, it's like technology that essentially there is what you know, Yuval Harari has been talking about. With they've now hacked the human. They've gotten inside of us, you know, and so you know they're using stuff like basically nanotechnology, blockchain combined with immunity passports. And they've been developing this for quite some years, and it's definitely on the horizon. It's just something that it isn't really being. I mean, these are glamorous-looking commercials, which shows you there's a lot of time, investment, and production that's been going into it. And so I think that we can't lose sight of that. Now that people are feeling, oh, the COVID thing's gone, they're backing off of the vaccines. The message of the Looking Glass videos was saying that this was only just the first wave. And, as ominous as it sounds, I have to say I'm getting confirmation over here in Europe. I don't know how it is for you over there in the States, but they are definitely bracing for a next wave.
Well, what we're hearing is not just the next wave. We're hearing, bird flu. I think what we're, if you look at it from a more principled standpoint, the principle of what's happening is, I think, with this new decade beginning in 2020, they flipped the switch and they're not going to let off. And there's not just that this has been developed. There's trillions and trillions of dollars. Literally all of every industry has only really invested in the new technologies, in AI, in the Internet of Things. So they are full steam for them. That there's no question this is the next thing. So we need to understand this, because only then can we actually create in the right way, I believe.
Exactly. And so, coupled with that, I mean, they the whole thing that, and just to try to wrap up on that fourth video of the Looking Glass people, the other element was the was this thing about, okay, now the upcoming event is May 20th, with Wu, and because we've irritated them on the April 18th event, they've been messing with CERN, right, to try and screw up or modify the timelines for the Looking Glass. And and if you look at it, this is directly from CERN's website, and it's in German here, okay, but basically it's an announcement that on the 22nd of April they're starting, they're starting with their ramp up of this new and modified version of the Hadron Collider. And, I've even heard some people say that it's fake, that's a rumor, but let me just give you an idea of what we're looking at here. That, because we talked about it in the last video on how CERN works as a time machine, that they were using this in the past as a time machine. What they're really doing with it is they're actually trying to create a black hole. They're trying to create a larger black hole than they did in their previous experiments. They were working around the 5 to 6 tera electron volt range. Now, And they had some success, of course, but they knew they needed more. And so now they've refurbished it. And just so the people have an idea, 1 tera electron volt is 1 trillion electron volts. Okay, and they're now capable of generating 12 trillion teravolts. Okay.
And Frank, are you hearing this information from different sources? Is this coming from different sources to you?
This is coming from scientists that I know, and directly from people, near to the CERN facility. Okay. So it's definitely happening, and you can feel it too in a way. And I want to show you guys something else that we found that's interesting that happened just now. The way they're doing it is they can't just jump to 12, right? So they're doing it every day, more and more and more. And right now, I mean, they've been at it now for 2 weeks, so they're probably getting close to, where they want to be. So the other day, Dieter Breurs, the biophysicist that we did Solar Evolution with, he's been watching the sun and solar anomalies and the NASA material for a long time, and just a couple days ago, this is a picture that he found.
What are we looking at?
That is a solar anomaly that was photographed by NASA's satellites, and I said to him, I mean, you see them, usually you see them in different forms, little specks and strange, like dust-like particles. Mm-hmm. But we've never seen, or he's definitely, in over 30 years of watching this, he's never seen anything like this. And this is a clear indication of something artificial. And because we are connected, let's not forget that, we also affect the sun. People always think it's the sun affecting us, but it goes both ways. And so when he showed me that picture, it was funny. I wrote back to him in the chat, and at the same time I hit enter, he did, and we both had the word CERN on the screen. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, that was another sort of a sign from the universe. So they are absolutely playing around with it, and the question is, what are they trying to achieve with the black hole? And we know that with the way black holes work is when black holes are it's like a sink, when you can't drain the sink unless air comes out when you pull the plug. And black holes are very similar. On the other side of the black hole, is a white hole, you could say, or it's like material comes out as well at us, and that stuff is going to be coming at us. And so the question is, what is it? And at what frequency is it resonating? And it probably has a lot to do with the resonant frequency of those whose intention is behind the project. So it's quite likely that we will not be affected by it necessarily, negatively even. Yeah.
You said something very, very important here, kind of like a side note, but the intention of those who are involved in it. Now, please explain, because people are going to say, well, wait a minute, this technology, I flip a switch, doesn't matter what I want. What do you think? What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that it comes back down to how our thoughts actually participate in forming and shaping the timeline from moment to moment. And the people that are involved in this project, they have specific particular goals. And, those goals aren't working toward favoring us necessarily. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting this project under top secret wraps. They wouldn't be killing people like, Hans-Peter Wertz, who came out and talked about it, and 2 weeks later was found dead after he blew the whistle on, the MIBs showing up and turning and basically locking up the facility. So these people have a particular resonance. They have a particular energy field that is part of their group. And whatever they're working on and whatever their intention is with these experiments actually directly affects the experiment. It's like the observer plays a large role in what the outcome of the experiment is going to be. And so this is an experiment that they're doing. And the thing that we have to, of course, hope is that by them, there's never been a time in our modern history, at least, maybe in other civilizations that have been Atlantean, I don't know, but in our current world, there has never been this much electrical energy generated on the planet in one single spot ever. Okay, so we just have to hope that they don't really screw something up big time, cracked the crust or something stupid. So, but other than that, on an energetic level, I think that the messages that we're getting is that we're free and clear of that, and that's really important to know. I think so. Whatever they're doing, they're trying to affect the Looking Glass timelines. Of course, they're trying to anchor in their timeline, because now I think we've done a lot to affect even, I think, Event 2.
Which is May
1 and
20th,
2,
right?
yeah, 1 and 2 are they're interlocked, because I think everybody who was watching the video 1 obviously checked out, and we talked about Event 2. So whatever is going to happen, if there's going to be an assassination on a Dr. Winston Wu, if he's even real, I'm pretty sure we've already prevented that one as well, without even really needing to do anything else. Maybe it's even better we don't focus on it, because then we don't even give it any energy. But it's interesting, if you look at the Wu situation, I did double check, because they said that they had actually reached out to Wu and warned his people, right?
And the Wu people had confirmed in their
Right, exactly. You can see that right here. Here's a screenshot. They said an outside group has issued an alert about a potential threat to Dr. Wu's life. This group has contacted us personally. They also offered details about our project about Dr. Wu that are not publicly available, which led us to conclude the information was valid and of extreme importance. We continue to communicate with this group, and we are currently taking numerous steps to increase security. So, whatever, they're obviously, and then there's another message that came a few days later, where I think a lot of people began thinking that this is a big scam. And so they addressed it right on their forum. They said, we've been made aware that individuals on the internet are discussing our project and calling what we are doing a scam. We cannot control other people's opinions, and we understand skepticism. We also know that what we are doing is not a scam, but a legitimate project that has already successfully completed 2 test runs, paid out millions to our testers. Okay, now I also found some interesting interchanges on the internet between people that were claiming to be part of the project and actually had done payouts. And other people wrote me and said that they've been, even getting involved. And I also want to mention here, before we even go further, neither you nor I have ever suggested to anybody to go and invest in raindrop, DAO cryptocurrency. And nowhere do the Looking Glass Guardians ever mention to go out and buy this now in order to save the world either.
No.
So some people probably think it is some kind of a crypto scam. They are covering their tracks, but I wouldn't recommend you invest in it, because I'm not going to invest in it. I mean, that's not necessarily our job. But there are apparently some major transactions taking place behind the scenes. So something is going on. There is some activity in any case. So something, it's definitely real on some kind of a level. Yeah. So I think that's all we really need to say about it.
There is one more aspect, Frank. I want to ask about the 4th video, and that's what a lot of people also, including me. That's where my flags went up. Okay, what's with the amulet, and what's with the? I mean, that kind of came so.
Oh yeah, the amulet.
Left field. It was just so.
I have some thoughts on that too. So go ahead. I want to hear your opinion on that.
No, I don't have an opinion. I want to know your opinion.
Come on, you have an opinion on it.
Well, all of a sudden, you have, as you said, the 4th video changed everything in terms of what the narrative is, how reactive it is, and how, in some ways, maybe even a little defensive in some ways. But then it switches over into, okay, first of all, for the first time, as far as I'm aware, it addressed the viewer as the guardians.
Yes.
And this, I think a lot of people were reminded, okay, Anons, when Q started, okay, you are the Anons, and so these are the guardians. And so there was a lot of correlation there. But I could go into how to decipher this. But then my thought process was this triggers a lot of confusion. It distracts from the actual I think, focus that we need to have on it. But what's your take?
Well, for one thing, they said something like, here, I'll quote, it says, they said, there's an event coming in July which will harm more people. It's of great concern. We must do all we can to prevent the May 20th. And if we fail, we will not succeed at all. Okay, now, those kinds of languages irritate me, because I don't believe in such absolutes. And I can understand that they might be using this to kind of fire up people that need the cheerleaders. But we're far more sophisticated. You know, our group and our discussion that we're having, we're much more nuanced. You know, to need this kind of language to be fired up to do something. So I didn't like their use of that language, and they also said something about the amulet. And the amulet, for me, what bothers me about the amulet is that we are way more powerful than any object. Like, it's us that imbues a crystal or an amulet or a piece of jewelry with its power. So to put, and if you place your power into an object, you're actually taking away something of yourself. So the amulet thing for me is also like, okay, well, if this thing was an amulet that was handled by or given to Christ or given to Muhammad and stuff, you know, how is that going to compete with a 12 tera electron volt CERN machine, like generating like field? I mean, maybe, okay, you know, and it's just, they've kind of put themselves into an interesting place right now. And I, you know, like I'm saying to you, we're pushing them in a way to be, and okay, if it is some kind of a code, right? They're saying there's a code in their videos. You know, maybe the code isn't necessarily even like a code, like a real code with a certain number of letters and a certain, maybe the code is these kinds of terminologies to see if we can break past them. If it's going to freak us out, people are going to step out, others are going to, because they do say be vigilant or something like that, you know, like hold on, where is it here? We asked them, Guardians, to be vigilant. Yeah. And so yeah, we do absolutely need to be vigilant. But I think because we've hacked these messages with our own conversation about timelines and consciousness, we have the right to question them, and we're not doing it in a nasty way. There's people that, of course, they mentioned that they had to shut down their chats, right? And people asked me directly, and I actually wrote them. And you know, when they wrote, and they've corresponded a couple of times, but then they've broken off. And when I wrote them the last time, I wrote about the codes, about the opening the chat, right? And so they responded directly to that by the fact that people are basically trolling their chats. No, I can understand that, but I think they should be happy because anyone who's telling the truth, they welcome criticism, they welcome skepticism, and we're not doing it in a nasty way. We're doing it our skepticism is a healthy skepticism because we're looking at the data they're providing to us, and we're breaking it down. You know, and we're working through it because we can't ignore the fact that we've now set something in motion that people are paying attention to this. So it's irresponsible to just drop it now and say, oh, it's a bunch of frauds, because that's just as destructive in a certain way. Until we know more, until we play them out, either we play them out all the way until they've run out of creativity and resources, and we've worn them down and we've seen through it, and we've been victorious in our steering of the conversation to the, and not only that, but we've also started a new conversation about timelines and future and Earth 2 and you know, versus the timeline, the transhumanist timeline. So it's all good for us. It's more up to them right now. The pressure's on them to deliver, and I think we're watching very closely. What do you think?
Well, as I said before, I think one thing is I always try to step out and kind of do the bird's eye view, and I look at the last 10 years and think things have become increasingly stranger. A lot of things inexplicable. Now, this decade, 2020 onwards. You just have to shake your head at what's going on in the world. Nothing makes sense anymore. Everything's upside down, and you see things obviously so fake in the public realm. You know, leaders that don't look like they used to look just a few years ago, and messages. Nothing makes sense anymore. And if the past 2 years have shown us one thing, is that nothing in this world is set in stone. So everything is transforming at a very fast pace. And so this coming out, to me, like you said, it opens a conversation that maybe people were not having in the public space enough, and we're not acknowledging this. So part of this is also to see what kind of destructive technology is already out there and has been messing with us.
If they were trying to, if they were trying to, admit certain things about CERN, we're their worst nightmare, man. We've just, there's hundreds of thousands of people thinking about CERN now that probably never were before. They know now where it is. They know how it works, what it's doing. That wasn't going on, that conversation before. That's affecting their experiment.
And we also have to understand that, I mean, this is a collider that they invested, I think, trillions of dollars or euros.
Well, they 2.5 billion was just for this latest upgrade.
So, you wonder, and the initial intention was to recreate the big boom, the Big Bang, how the universe supposedly was created, and give me a break. I mean, you can't keep this story up. So much has happened since. The Mandela effect is one thing. You can't just rationalize it away. It wasn't something that had happened before. It's something that we've talked about in the 20th century. All of a sudden, you have this collective memory that is different for millions and millions of people. This is not fake. So these things are going on. And
Geordie Rose addressed it 10 years ago in his big talks about the D-Wave computer. He was making a joke about the Mandela, effect. And I thought that was very interesting listening to him talk about it, because he was talking about reaching into other parallel dimensions to solve problems with quantum computers. And another thing that I just remembered about the black hole they're opening is that it's also opening something for them to go into. So they are actually moving resources into this other dimension. So it's not all about what's coming through onto this side as well. But you can be certain that the sheer numbers of people of us that are talking about CERN and these experiments now are affecting their results. And I'm sure it's not what they were hoping for. I mean, I'm sure we're not expecting it. But I wanted to also, before we finish up today, I've compiled a couple of different informations that deal with consciousness and where we're moving, and about creating reality that reach right back to the original Project Looking Glass dialogues that were taking place with the J-Rod and the people running that project, the original project, from which we're getting pieces of it moved into the current Guardians of the Looking Glass material. But because I've been putting together this, I've been picking out the nuggets for this webinar that I keep threatening to do. It's
more work than it sounds. It's just one.
I just want to make it worthwhile, because it's going to take people down the rabbit hole, but it's got to be something that's has durability and it's good. It's going to be so and also the platform to make it safe and usable and all that stuff. It takes a bit, but I promise you, it's going to be out there a couple more weeks. I'm sure I'll have it solved. But I wanted to read you a couple of quotes that I'm sure you'll find very interesting, right? And one of them is, about how it just, about how we take things. We need to take matters into our own hands, because shaping our reality consciously requires our efforts and our focus. Yeah, and so they wrote, present time humanity could become the conscious, subconscious, or unconscious victims of its own negative future that has already cruised into existence ahead of us and is even already bouncing back to us in a shout for help. Or humanity could increasingly become fully awake, conscious creator in the matter of its future.
That's great. I encourage people to go back, really re-listen to what's being said here.
Well, here I'm gonna put a couple of these up on the screen, because these ones are we can look at them and then you can read them too. Your consciousness is deprived of much of your energy capacity as a soul due to all the mind-numbing, feeling-numbing, arrogance-increasing preoccupations, distractions, negative investments, unhealthy engagements, recessions into the subconscious or into the unconscious, the buying global propaganda, the refusal to think or feel, not growing up, not being alive, not loving, and not being connected to the truth and feeling and the beauty and the pain and intricacy of all that is in your worldly perceptual sphere.
beautiful. Who's that by? Do you know this?
This is coming directly from the extraterrestrial, the J-Rod, the P-52. Okay, as far as I know, this is essentially this is what it's talking about. This is what's going on around us. And we're getting, we're being subjected to mind control by, this is from everyone probably recognizes this is from Orwell's 1984, right? But this is essentially what's happening around us in our current time. We're suffering from cognitive dissonance because internally, those who are waking up are realizing they're starting to tune into this stuff that's coming at us, and yet they're having these conflicting messages from the society around them. Okay, let's look at this one. This is good too. The secret truth is a universal mind-heart infinity symphony of all beingness, hoping we will reach out and become a co-creative friend, companion, and partner in the larger creation's unified intentional quest for evolving higher orders of love and consciousness, that eventually each of us have the capacity to recover the yield of all the soul energy lost into all the Maya wheels of pain and unconsciousness we have passionately invested ourselves in to learn, understand, love, become one with, and eventually transcend. I mean, that's so powerful because that's saying, what we talked about in the last show, how the universe wants to evolve with us. It wants to make this new timeline happen, and even a cataclysmic event could be changed by the state of consciousness collectively, so that instead of it being a negative event, it totally sweeps past us and doesn't affect us. And the other interesting point about this statement is that it shows you that all the pain we go through in our waking up process, it's not for naught. It's actually something that we re-yield that energy that comes back to us. It's like something we get that is essentially brought back, and it's like a boomerang effect. We gain back all that wasted energy. So there's really nothing wasted, even if you're really going through a hard time, and you're the only person in your family that's conscious of what's going on, and your circle of friends, or you're starting to wake up and see the truth around you, nobody else is. It's going to be a little bit painful, but this information that we got directly from these higher level future beings is telling us an order of thinking that is proving that this isn't wasted, that there's actually something very powerful about it. This one's good too. The secret truth of enlightenment is that simple, innocent, yet wise humility, honesty, sensitivity, vulnerability, caring, courage, openness, receptiveness, and desire to experience and know more of love, along with a little discernment, important word here, is and has always been the natural answer to realizing the desire for union and connection and cosmic belonging with all life and beingness. These habits of humility, being as the wise fool lilies of the field, can make transparent all the mysteries of the soul's own grain of sand within the world's disguise, freeing one to forge into new future never before predicted, never before possible, that will become more spiritually integrated in ways that are currently unimaginable by any individually bound consciousness, agenda, or storyline. It's virgin timeline territory and virgin consciousness evolution territory.
Oh, very, very powerful as well.
That's pretty powerful stuff, right?
Amazing.
Check this one out. It is the destiny of more and more souls to eventually choose the timeline of more love and less pain, more beauty and less violence, more oneness and less chaos, and more enchantment and less crisis. But to actualize this higher evolutionary path, we must not be the ones that somehow escape the problems in the world, but be the ones that found a way to consciously solve and resolve them. And then along with that one goes, the optimal future timeline is the timeline where all the problems were solved, not avoided. The irony is that the timelines where the huge problems are avoided and ignored are covered up in the timelines that run into serious problems. Creating something wonderful requires waking up and getting to work, not expecting someone or some spiritual agency to fix it for you. For this reason, it is asserted that some disclosure of the hidden truth of our situation occurs. Interesting, right? We're talking 17 years ago, right? As a species, if we can wake up and recognize what is at stake, we may make the change. The course of the future the DCTP fears will transpire. The DCTP is the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox. And it's pretty much like you could say it's sort of like instruction manual in a way for those people who are working with this high level information. And I just pulled out a couple of cherry picked quotes from it, but it shows you how powerful that discourse was between what was going on in Majestic and the whole J-Rod communication and the Project Looking Glass 20 years ago. And there's a very high spiritual level to it. So, I mean, it's therefore not a surprise that the Guardians of Looking Glass brought in that thing about the amulet and Christ, because the spiritual aspect there's a touch of it in there as well. Mm-hmm. But it is really nice to see that there's this higher form of consciousness being expressed by them over almost 20 years ago. Now, this is something that I want to share with you that came just a couple days ago from this Polish medium transmission group that we know. This period is rich with intense influxes of light waves. We were able to experience day after day from the 17th to the 20th up to 4 solar flares, including 2 of the strongest X-class and in between 2 M-class, which brought a strong influx of light. For some people, the process of activating the 5th DNA strand has now begun.
Powerful.
The consciousness of humanity has made a leap to a higher level. This means that the energy generated by a group of people who are aware of themselves as creator beings is already stronger than the chaotic energy of destructive creation generated by beings who still live in fear and are not in control of their own power of creation. A group of people aware of the power of their own creative abilities has the full potential to create a scenario of positive events now, at this very moment, and is indeed already doing so. This came through on the 30th of April, man. So I think it's speaking directly to us.
Oh, I got goosebumps, and it's there's a thought that's been crossing my mind over the past few days, and this is something that I think this is the perfect time to share it. What we're seeing in the outside world right now is a consolidation of power in, when it comes to resources, when it comes to finances. So basically this external power structure, this dark force power structure is buying up everything, is consolidating everything, and they're taking control of everything that's essential to our let's say physical needs. Okay, so that's what they're doing. What we have the opportunity, and what so many people are doing, is the popularization of consciousness. Really consciously step into who you are as a creator. And what I think the Guardians of the Looking Glass have given us an opportunity, like so many others, is to approach the conversation so it begins speaking to more and more people. Because for some, it's the spiritual approach where you just go through spiritual teachings and it triggers you and you activate consciousness. For others, you have to first see the horror of what's going on in the world to say, oh, this. So I just want to invite everyone to let go of the need that we need to get all the details right here, or that we need to, get the fine print right. It's not what this is about. This is really a conversation about the activation of consciousness and co-creation, and get to understand what we want. And then, like you said in this beautiful quote, get to work, do it, create it,
yes,
bring it out, talk to people about it. And because the first question is always, once people wake up or are awakening to what's going on in the world, is what can I do? This is what you can do. Become aware and then think, what is the organic, beautiful, positive future timeline? Is that how you see it too?
Absolutely. I think it's just, one thing I liked about the darkness of the messages from the Guardians of Looking Glass is that it's like, it brings up that issue, like, confront your shit. Like, why is it always that we have to be afraid to look at the dark stuff? It's just code too, really, ultimately, right? So it's not the code in itself which is dangerous, it's how we deal with it. And I think that a lot of problems in the world happen. That was addressed by the thing about we need to, to work at resolving and fixing the timeline. And if we can't do that, we're going to drag those problems with us. This is what I don't understand about people. I think we're just going to land in the fifth dimension. You think we're not going to bring that baggage with us? What do you think? We're just going to wake up like fresh babies with no recollection? If we want to take our consciousness with us, we have to bring with us what we've, like it was saying, this baggage, we have to have processed it and dropped it. And we know why we're not bringing it. There's no lingering doubt in our mind that, wow, there was just that one thing I didn't solve, or that one, no, we've looked at it and we've understood what it is and we've dropped it. Yeah. Now check out this is like, that Dieter and I are doing a series on instrumental transcommunication messages, right?
Yeah.
So these messages come from about 30 years ago. These are messages from spirits that actually have never incarnated, and they were delivered directly through. And it's always our choice. Nothing can be created that is not present. Spirit is also present. Spirit is not created. It is activated. All that you can imagine is possible. Consciousness is activated by the spirit, put together as needed. It is your free will to give form to these already existing things. Mankind could have or could also use everything in another form. It shows you we're very flexible, with the stuff that is out there for us to work with. We can do whatever we want with it. And here's another one. Imagine that there are thoughts buzzing all around you in space, thousands, millions of possibilities, that you only need to tune in. Actually quite simple. Nothing is ever eliminated. Everything is always available. I mean, very, very advanced messages for way back then.
But very, very true. And we're now living through this realization, I think. That's what it feels like. So, like you said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's what people are afraid of the fear. And if that is what's coming up, people are going to probably, want to lynch me for saying this. But if fear comes up while you're looking at any kind of information, that fear is inside of you. It's not really in information. It's not really in what you're looking at. The fear is inside of you. And you have to ask yourself, where did it come from? What needs to be forgiven or healed? And like Frank said, go look at your shit. I know. Because like you said, if we go into fifth dimension, bring that baggage with us, it's not going to be different. I can tell you, we moved halfway across the world years and years ago, and it didn't change some of the things that were in our lives that we needed to address. So just because we changed locations, it didn't solve all of our problems, none whatsoever.
You always bring yourself along to the next place that you're moving to, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So address this, that's to the viewers and to all of us. We need to remind ourselves every time we hit a wall or every time we look at something and we just want to look away because it's dark, because it's bad, there's a reason why you want to look away. It's not really because of what you're looking at, but because of what's triggered inside of you. And that's not to say we should tolerate or accept what's going on in the world. To the contrary, we should do something about it. But we need to start with ourselves, like Frank said.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you've got essentially, it's really just about knowing that you are, you are the one that's steering the ship, that you're in charge of what your reality ultimately is going to be, right? We have the grandfather of quantum physics. Reality is in the observations, not in the electron. In other words, it means we precede reality. Yeah, I mean, reality isn't something that we're reacting to. And then, Max Planck, there is no matter as such. Mind is the matrix of all matter, right? Two of the leading quantum physics masters telling us way back then already that, we create our reality. And these other messages were just so beautiful because they are giving us the hope that, we can, when we address and do the work, that all the suffering we may have gone through, the painfulness of looking at things, it comes back to us. It's given back to us in a bundle of energy, and it's been transmuted into something very powerful for us that we can carry with us into that new dimension. And because I do believe that it would be nice if this event that's going to happen in 2030, when it happens, that we take, I would like to take what I have now with me. I don't want to pass the veil of death and then be confused again. I would like to be part of this transcendence process, this massive quantum leap that we as humanity have coming. And I just, all these messages that I've found are just giving hope that this is all possible, and there's tools to do it. And the people that were the first ones who discovered it have left us the breadcrumbs for us to pick up and to remind ourselves that that yes, this is possible. It's not just our imagination.
Frank, before we let you go, we've taken up a lot of your time today, and I want to thank you for that. What is your gauge if you approach new information, if this finds you, like the Looking Glass videos, take that as an example? What is your gauge as to what do you put more energy into? How do you find out what the truth is? And what would be your advice to listeners and viewers today? How to approach information when it comes in?
That's a good question. It gets asked actually quite often. And the way I use it is this discernment thing is a factor. It's got to do with my gut feeling. And like, for example, if I just look at the Guardians of Looking Glass material, when I first discovered it, I just, I had this goosebumpy gut feeling that I needed to get this out there. I wasn't passing judgment on it yet as being one or the other way. It just somehow felt like this was, alone the reason that the way I found it was never supposed to be there. I never, you don't find that information in the thread where I was digging around. Mm-hmm. It was almost like it was dropped there for me by my higher self, or whatever you want to look at it, to say, okay, here, this is your next assignment. Mm-hmm. And my heart, of course, is an important part too, because I have to feel it. And even if it's dark, it doesn't matter if it's positive. I feel it, like everyone knows that feeling when you have this joy and this ecstasy, right? I'm sure everyone knows that feeling. Yeah. And with dark stuff, it's also similar. When you feel the dark stuff, you can kind of feel it's real. And for example, even Hollywood films that are fictional, there's truthful elements in the film that are acted out, and that acting is drawing upon real emotional stored information in our magnetosphere. And the third element of it is just intellect, where I draw upon all the thousands of things I've read over the course of my life, books and magazines and articles and, in conversations and all that repository of information in my mind. So I sort of make a check with, is that right? And especially if you've really gotten to the bottom of something and you've resolved it for yourself and you've more or less found the truth of a particular matter, when you're confronted with another version of that no longer is true, it's a good feeling, because okay, this isn't true. It's just not true. You've proven it. So there's those three elements that work together. It's a play. I think it's important not to immediately throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. Be open to what you feel and explore that, and don't care about if giving you dark images, because you can't really affect it unless you intend it. If you're just witnessing it, it's another thing altogether. If you then take the dark information and you arrow it at something, that's like, voodoo.
Yeah.
That's a different thing, and even then there are people that are more or less successful at deploying those kinds of information or feeling weapons or emotional weapons. So as long as you're not doing that and you're just scanning the information, there's no harm in it at all. And the things that are going on that are bad, don't think that, oh my God, just because I read this, now there's something bad happening to this person or in the world. No, believe me, there's people already out there that are intending the bad shit to happen.
Yes, and
their soul karma, it's their journey, and maybe you've found your place here in this cosmic soup right now because you're supposed to witness it, and you're supposed to be an antidote to it through the purity of your thoughts and through the tools that we've been talking about here, just as you know, as decoding the matrix and getting through it and to the other side, and identifying that timeline that's got to do with the organic, enlightened quantum leap consciousness. You know, take some pictures into your mind about, maybe you go out on the street and hug your neighbors once in a while, or, you know, and maybe there's like, you know, there's electric cars out there, but they don't use lithium batteries like Teslas. They're completely running off of atmospheric energy that someone has invented, because we've now spent a couple of years and given some inventors money. Instead of 44 billion to buy, you know, Twitter, maybe someone will give 44 million to you know, to create a little campus and pull 10 or 20 of the best free energy inventors into a scene for 5 years, and voila, we'll have that. I mean, these are all the visions that you can kind of fantasize about. And another thing that you know, might be interesting is to use music. You know, you can, if you want to put on some music that inspires you. Everyone's got different music. Some people it's like, you know, soft meditational. Other people it's heavy metal. There's no judgment here. Like, it depends what fires you up. But use that music and as your soundtrack to visualize that new world, and if you're jogging or walking or driving or whatever it is, just, you know, build up that emotional feeling, and with that vision using music, that can be a very, very powerful tool to accentuate and magnify that feeling, magnitude of levels.
Beautiful. I absolutely second everything you said. I want to thank you so much for your time again, for your knowledge, your wisdom. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to hear your perspectives. Now, Frank, you've mentioned it. There's a webinar in the works. Where can people, once it's up, how can people already pre-register, and where can they find you online?
Well, the pre-registers thing is kind of a hook right now. I haven't gotten that one down yet, but it's going to be on frankjacob.com, whatever happens. I mean, you can go there now and you can write me and just tell me that you'd like to do it, and I will. I've got flagged already a bunch of people that have written me, and I will absolutely send you a notification when it's ready to go. And then, you know, we can explore these topics much deeper and bring in more elements that we can't. It's just not enough time. We covered too much of a range of stuff in an hour. But so yeah, frankjacob.com is probably the best place to go. And like I said, maybe I'll even give you a heads up too, you know, John, when it's at that point, and then we can notify people if they're interested.
Wonderful. So please go visit frankjacob.com. Send him, there's a contact form. Send him an email through that, and just let him know you want to be part of the webinar once it drops. And so that'll be taken care of. Inspired Tribe, as always, we aim, you know, to create a discussion, open our minds around topics, perspectives, but go within and come to do your own research, do your own meditation, come to your own conclusions, but please do come to your own conclusions. It's important that as long as we keep looking outside of us for answers, that cycle is going to continue to perpetuate itself. So we just encourage everyone to use their own discernment, and we look forward to the next conversation. Frank, thank you so much once again for being here.
Well, it's been a real honor. Again, as always, pleasure to talk with you, John.
Thank you, and thank you, Inspired Tribe. And until we see each other again, have a wonderful, blessed, and inquisitive rest of your day.